No camera? Well, at 6 o'clock, we're going to get started. And first of all, I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. Very impressive crowd. And thanks for coming out. The weather held off, so it's not too bad for us. Before we start, I would like to acknowledge the council people that are here tonight. And if I missed any, please let me know. We have Paul Colavecchio is here, council at large. Mary Ellen Pike, council president, is here tonight. Russ Iona, Ward 8 is here. Carol Klinger, council at large, is here. Hello, Carol. Vince Rubino, Ward 1 council, is in the back. We have Vic Pilata, is Ward 3, is here as well. And Mary Nichols Rhodes, Ward 4 council person. Thank you for coming. And I'd also like to acknowledge the CEO of the Cuyahoga Falls Chamber of Commerce, Laura Petrella, is here. So thank you again for coming tonight. Before I read, I have an opening statement, and then I'll give it over to all the people here. We brought in a lot of professionals from all over the country that have been working behind the scenes on this project. But before I read the opening statement and remarks, the first question to answer is, why are we here? What are we looking at doing for Front Street and why? And to answer that, I have to back up 40 years. I've been here my whole life, lifetime resident. I'll give away my age. I've been here 53 years. So in that time, we've seen a lot of changes in our downtown. And as you know, the downtown was the first thing that formed when the city was formed because of the river. So that's where it started, and it grew out from there. Now, about 40 years ago, or even a little beyond that, the first thing that changed was all the rage was the big indoor shopping malls. And Summit Mall was built in 65, Chapel Hill in 67. And when that happened, everyone gravitated towards everything under one roof. That was all the rage. That was the trend. Well, unfortunately for downtowns, a lot of the shoppers left. They went for everything under one roof. And all across the country, the downtown started to die. The towns didn't know what to do. What do we do? How do we get shoppers back? How do we get these filled? I'm sorry, Adam Miller is here. Ward 6 council person is here. So at the time, the downtowns thought, well, we'll have a niche here. We'll get rid of the cars. We'll make a pedestrian mall, and the shoppers will flock back downtown. Well, I'll tell you, some have been successful. About 11% have been successful through that time, 40 years. Orlando, San Antonio, you see where I'm going with that? Northeastern Ohio, we don't get the foot traffic that will come down to a pedestrian mall to support the retail environment. So where are we at today? We've seen that the pedestrian mall has struggled. There's vacancies, there's offices, probably not the best use. There is some good retail down there, but not enough foot traffic to support traditional retail. And that's why they're not there. So now we've seen, unfortunately, you've read in the paper that Chapel Hill is not doing well. And people buy a lot of things online now. They don't want to go to a big indoor shopping mall because retail demands two things: visibility and accessibility. And a big indoor shopping mall offers neither. A pedestrian mall offers neither because you don't know what's there. And very few people in February in Ohio will park in a parking deck and walk 2 entire city blocks weekly to see what's new. They don't do it. There has to be visibility and accessibility. And all the retail experts that are here tonight will reiterate that, and they'll tell you why that's important. So anyhow, what we're doing is we don't wake up one day and say, hey, let's put a road back in Front Street where it once was. We do our homework. We do intense homework, and we've been doing that for a couple years now. So you're going to hear with this public meeting tonight where we're at in the process, what we've learned, and we want to share all that with you because obviously I work for you. The downtown is for the residents. That's where there'd be something you'd be proud of, activities, things to do without losing all the fun elements, but also have a vibrant downtown where people can come and spend the afternoon, also creating jobs, increasing property values. All those things that we want to do in our city are all possible down there, and the timing is right. All the things have come together. We also know that we have an average of 85,000 cars a day drive right through our downtown on Route 8. 85,000 cars. We have 9 exits in our town. We need to give them a reason to get off the highway and spend some money. Whether it's us or people traveling through town, we want to capture that. So that's what this is all about, and you'll get in-depth explanation tonight on where we're at and how we arrived at that decision. So I will read an opening statement, then I'll turn it over to Fred. And tonight is a continuation of many meetings to interact with the public regarding the future of our downtown. We have had many public meetings and work sessions involving property owners, business owners, festival committees, local, state, and federal officials, council members, and most importantly, you, the resident. This project has grown from an idea that has been envisioned for many years, and the time has finally come to turn words into action. All in all, we've sought feedback from a huge variety of sources, and we've spent an enormous amount of time doing our homework to ensure that, and first I say with council approval, when the dust settles and construction is complete, the resulting downtown is your downtown. After listening to your concerns and ideas this past summer, we took your collective vision and we ran with it. Throughout the summer and fall months, we worked with our consultants to complete preliminary design work that will yield a pedestrian-friendly downtown that is vibrant and alive with activity, a downtown corridor with plenty of parking where you, as well as our festivals and special events, will feel just as much at home as the retailers and the restaurants will. Tonight, we not only want to recap what's been done, but also what still needs to happen, and more importantly, why it needs to happen. We have reached the point to where doing nothing is not an option. Even without reopening the street, significant investments will still need to be made to improve the current condition of the decks, the physical condition of the surface of the mall, replacement of underground utilities, and even the fountains. We are here tonight to unveil a portion of the vision that you gave us, to give you a sneak peek of amenities and streetscapes, from trees to plantings to drinking fountains, with even a place to give your dog a drink, or a station to repair your bike and put air in the tires. We heard you, and now we'd like to show you. Tonight, our experts are here to inform you about the reality and future of retail and show you that while indoor malls may be dying, community centers, lifestyle centers, and downtowns are not. As part of our fact-finding, I've witnessed firsthand how downtowns can succeed. Several weekends ago, I boarded a bus with members of our community, and we visited the village of Oak Park, Illinois, city of Valparaiso, Indiana, and the city of South Bend, Indiana. All three showed different but equally successful examples of areas that were restored to vibrant and thriving downtowns. There are many success stories here in Ohio, too. Stories such as Easton and Columbus, or even closer to home in downtown Kent and Hudson, or Legacy Village is a working example just 30 minutes north of here. Our experts tonight will show you other success stories nationwide and share why we have all the ingredients here to be successful as well. Now, there's a lot to cover tonight, and we have provided a list of answers to the most frequently asked questions, but immediately following tonight's presentation, the panel will split up, and we will stay as long as it takes to answer all individual questions. Specifically, John Harris from A5 and Rick Krochka from TRIAD Communications will be in the corner at their booth to gather input on downtown branding. If you're unable to stay, there are question comment cards available. My staff will follow up with you. Thank you very much for coming. Have a cookie, sit back, listen, and learn. It's an exciting time in Cuyahoga Falls. I'll turn it over to Fred Guerra.
Thank you, Mayor. If I can figure out how to change the slide. Okay, here we go. We have a lot to cover tonight. We're trying to keep this in a time frame that we can get out of here and not get antsy and sitting in a seat for more than 2 hours. So the way we're doing things tonight is that we're having panels, and there's 3 panels that will be talking. The first panel will be talking about the public improvements which are the motor to this project, basically. And then we're going to talk about retail development and historic preservation, another panel. And then the third panel will be talking about branding. And we, the way we're doing this, as the mayor stated, is that we'll have comment cards. It would have been nice to be able to take questions, but we don't want to be here for that long. And so we'll be here to answer individual questions, but there'll be comment cards that you can submit, and we will get back with you with answers. And then there are the survey cards for the branding. And so we think that would work. We've used that process before, and it seemed to work pretty good. And so this is the first of a series of meetings that will be going on throughout the winter and spring. And just coming up, the next on deck, we have 2 meetings on the historic preservation process of this project of creating a local historic district. There's a public hearing in front of City Council on Monday talking about that local historic overlay district. And then there's a design review board meeting on Thursday talking about design guidelines for those districts. And as you'll see, historic preservation is a major component to what we're doing. Just to go over the panels, and I'm going to go through the names quickly and tell you who will be on those panels. The first panel is made up of the public improvements, and the mayor, myself, Tony DeMasi, our city engineer, Brian Hoffman, our finance director, Bonnie Tewin from Osborne Engineering, who's doing the engineering on the project, and Michelle Bandy, Zall from City Architects, sorry. And then on the retail development is David Mangum with Gibbs Planning. They did our market study. Stuart Zall with the Zall Company, they are our brokers, and Gerardo Guinness with the Zall Company. They are both doing our brokering for this project. And then Lauren Penny Burge is actually doing the theater project with Alan Burge, and Jason Rice is with Adventus. They are doing the hotel project. And then the third panel is John Harris with A5 Branding, is doing the branding, and he is working with a local company, Rick Krotchka, with Triad Communications. So the mayor talked about how we got to this point, and it's been a long process. We started in summer of 2015, and we started with a circulation plan that basically looked at the movement of traffic in the mall and around the mall. From there, we moved, from there, is it on? Okay, from there we moved to doing our market study, and we ended up doing a retail and residential market analysis, a retail strategy, a merchandising plan, and then from there we went to hiring the brokers. And I'm not going to go through this whole list, but basically between 2015 and 2016, we did all our homework. We did retail, we did engineering, we did planning, we did historic preservation planning, and then as we moved to 2017, we're getting closer to what we need to start the project. And so when we're 2017, we'll have a new brand, we'll have historic overlay districts, and we'll see some construction start in both the road and private development. So it's a fast turnaround, but a lot is going on, and a lot happened in 16, and we see a lot more happening in 17. When we started the project, we had some simple goals, basic goals, is to open up the pedestrian mall. And when the pedestrian mall was put in, we created one-way streets. And we needed to get those one-way streets back to normal streets and to make them two-way, to make the pedestrian mall work. So the goal included the pedestrian mall, opening it, and changing to two-way streets. As we move forward, we started looking at what really makes a great street. We got broader looking at what we're doing, and some of the things we looked at is we want to have multiple users, pedestrians, bikes, cars. We wanted to encourage social interaction. This is a sense of place where you'll hear tonight is we want a place that's a great location where you want to come. We want to use really good landscaping, streetscaping, other physical elements, as the mayor explained. And we want to capitalize on buildings, architecture, and things like that, is to create this great location where people want to come. Okay. When we started our project, we had meetings like this, and we started looking around what would make the best project. And we did what we call a walk-around design, which left everything in place, and we designed a road around those things. We designed a historic street that really is 1940s, 1950s Cuyahoga Falls, what the downtown looked like. And we did something for the festivals, because the festivals are an important component to our downtown. After we had meetings, we come up with a hybrid plan, and that's the plan that you'll see tonight. It is that hybrid plan that includes areas for festivals, it includes historic street, the street configuration, and you'll see that we saved a number of things, including the clock tower. It's not moving. We were thinking about it one time moving it, and it's not moving. So our strategy is somewhat simple, I guess. We're going to improve the public improvements. Those are going to be changed, as we talked about. We're out there trying to improve retail in the downtown. It's important. And you'll hear more tonight from our retail people and our brokers about what type of retail we're looking at. We're going to protect what's here, historic preservation districts, and we're going to have a brand new brand to promote the downtown. Okay, so we're going to go to our first panel, and I'm going to introduce the group that's really doing that's working on the streets improvements. And Tony DeMasi, our city engineer, Bonnie Tewin with Osborne Engineering, and Michelle Bandy, excuse myself, Michelle. I have to look up so I don't, Zalatoris. And so they are going to talk about the street project. And also Tony will talk a little bit about the parking deck improvements.
Thank you, Fred. So I'm Tony DeMasi, I'm the city engineer. They get to dream up these projects and we get to design and build them. We have a little bit of fun doing it also. This project, if you think about it, is in its basic sense a public works project, which is what we do every day. It's basically a road project, a street project with some sidewalks, and it's nothing different than a road that we do anywhere else in the city. But when we did the public hearings, public meetings, we wanted to incorporate the public comments that we received. And what we heard, as Fred mentioned, is that what was important to everybody was pedestrian friendly, the festivals, and parking. And so, nope, I want to go back. The whole downtown transformation project is not only the opening of Front Street, it also incorporates Front and Second Street north of Oakwood, where they're currently two-way road or one-way streets. We're going to convert them to two-way roads, and we're going to do a better circulation around the entire downtown. But the gist of the project, most of the project, is in this part of Front Street. This is Broad Boulevard, Portage Trail, Stowe Avenue right here, and Oakwood is down here. And the clock tower is down here. And so what we wanted to do is to make a road that allowed cars to travel, motorists to travel through the corridor, but still allow access to the buildings, pedestrian friendly, and allow for festivals in the area as well. And so we have a couple festival designation areas. For example, down here, obviously, the amphitheater and pavilion area, that's obviously a festival. We got an area up here by close to Portage Trail, and then up here, this is the theater site, right, by the green parking deck. So what we did is that we incorporated a design that kept the clock tower where it's at. Originally, we thought about moving the clock tower. Obviously, when we went and looked at all of the issues involved with that, they were quite extensive. I personally would have liked to seen that moved just because it's engineering. It'd be kind of neat to see, but I'm okay with keeping it there. It makes sense to keep it there. I'll see something else move some other time in my career. But what we did is that we incorporated curves to slow down traffic. We don't want this to be a race through. It's probably going to be a 15-mile-an-hour road. We want cars to go very, very slow, keep it pedestrian friendly. I can't stress this enough. And so we have different incorporated materials in here, pavement materials, to identify the festival areas. We also have some landscaping, and maybe Bonnie, you can touch on that. He's got it now.
Okay. You need to.
Engineer for you.
So what we tried to do, as Tony said, the original design was to move the clock tower, keep the existing splash pad fountain where it was. As we looked at some of those items, looked at the condition of the clock tower and the difficulty in moving the clock tower versus the condition of the existing fountain, it made more sense to keep the clock tower where it was and look at the possibility of moving the splash pad to a different location. There was a significant investment that needed to be made into the fountain on the south end to make improvements to just make an improvement and actually make it function as it was designed. And I'm going to pass it over to Michelle to talk about the landscaping items and some of the softer parts of it. And we're going to move along and talk about some hardcore engineering, so just wait.
Thank you, Bonnie. Just a little personal aside. It's so great to see so many people here. I grew up in Cuyahoga Falls, and to admit my age, I remember when it was a functioning street. And I can't tell you how excited I was to hear about this project moving forward and how much more excited I was to be involved. So thank you for the opportunity to be a part of it. I'm thrilled to be here tonight to talk about this. To go along with the hardscape elements and the festival areas, we wanted to soften some of those transitions. So we've got areas with planters, with seating walls, benches, bike racks. We've got some larger planters to the east in this main festival area here that sort of create a transition zone between the existing area for the amphitheater and the other streetscape elements that march down the street. So we've sort of created this edge zone area where you pass from some of the new improvements into the wonderful amenities that are already there.
And one of the things, if you notice, Tony, if you want to point to the parking area, we heard time and time again the importance of parking along this, that you just can't open it up to the roadway and not have on-street parking. So with an effort to still keeping the area looking good, but we still wanted to make sure that there was parking. So we created pull-in parking in this area right here. We have the opportunity to get some extra spaces in there, and that allows for somebody that's coming to visit that area can have on-street parking and be relatively close.
We're going to move one section to the north. This is Portage Trail. So we started over here, and we're heading towards Portage Trail. This is some businesses, this is that vacant lot right here. And again, another festival site that we prepared right there.
So one thing we did also include and take into consideration is the festivals that occur throughout the year. You know, we had heard from some of the vendors, from the communities, about the needs of the vendors during these festivals. So in some of the off-street parking areas, we've created utilities for these festivals that may occur along this. Includes some electrical, some water supplies, and also some dump sites for if these vendors, you know, need to dump some of their you know, used water, gray water, that we created some of that. And those are in periodic locations throughout that to help with, just with some of the logistics of those festivals.
And here you can see some more of the on-street parking that we introduced into the roadway, parallel parking along the road.
And we've got kind of a simple pattern that we've set up along the street. The idea with a lot of these, especially the hardscape improvements, we wanted it to be kind of simple and classic looking, not distracting, but something that would complement the retail environment and the historic nature of the street. So we set up a grid, and you can kind of see these stripes going across. That will be some different paver colors inset into the sidewalk. Those helped us organize the sidewalk and the street in terms of on-street parking spaces, the lighting spacing for the pedestrian lights, the sort of historic style lights that will be happening along the street, and it set up those patterns down the length of the street.
And the different material that we're using at these pedestrian areas is a reminder to drivers that there's something coming up that they need to be cognizant of. There is a crosswalk there. So as we continue to move north, this is the hotel theater, right? The old Falls Theater, the green parking deck. And here's an interesting design that we did. There's no access right now directly into the green parking deck. It was always designed to have one, but it just never was implemented. And so here we're going to introduce that entry and exit way into the green parking deck. So we want people to have the opportunity to drive down, park on the road if they want to, if there's a place to, and if not, they can simply pull into the deck, and there's obviously plenty of spaces in the deck as well. Once again, another festival site, another pedestrian-friendly area, and there's a blow-up of that as well.
And this does, as I mentioned before, it includes pavers. One of the things that we were looking at, and the city really stressed as part of this project, was the idea of very durable materials. So we looked at a lot of different options for paving, really liked the idea of using brick in these areas to highlight, but also to create that sense of durability and the historical connections.
So if you also notice on this is the area with the green deck that has the stairwell that protrudes out significantly from the green deck. What we've done to open up the sidewalk area and make it more pedestrian friendly is we're proposing to remove that stairwell and consolidate the stairwell with an elevator on this side, making it ADA compliant. This whole area is all in accordance with the ADA regulations that we have. So there'll be an elevator that comes directly onto Front Street with a stairwell there, and it's kind of tucked back in the corner a little bit, so it's not protruding so far out into the sidewalk, so that you can actually use that sidewalk. Pedestrians can use that sidewalk.
Again, continuing to the north, this is Stowe Avenue, and right here is Oakwood, and right here is the current north fountain, and we're proposing that obviously it's going to be in the road, so it has to be moved, is putting in another fountain within the plaza area that we're going to build along the Levinson Lane area.
And one of the things we heard, we understood through the design process that this was a place that was also important to the city from the standpoint of a gathering place, from festivals, the connections that a lot of people have to that fountain. So the idea of maintaining that character while that street does come through with the creation of a new fountain to respect that history and create some additional gathering spaces that would allow new types of festival events and new places for pedestrians to spend time after having dinner, that sort of thing. So we've created another gathering space here as part of the project.
And as you can see, more benches, planters, another meeting area. As Fred talked about, we do have 3 city parking garages downtown, which provide over 600 parking spaces. And what we wanted to do was to do sort of a condition survey of them, find out what type of condition that they're in right now, what needs do we have in terms of maintaining them and getting them up to a serviceability where they really need to be. Over the years, we've always done work in the decks, but it's been, quite frankly, pretty nominal amount of work. And we really wanted to do sort of a CPR on these decks. And so having the condition survey told us everything that we need to know about moving forward with improving them. We have 3 green decks, as I mentioned, the green, the red, and the blue, and all built after the mall was built. Actually, the blue deck was built a couple years, 3 years before. But they all have similar characteristics in terms of their conditions: deteriorating concrete, some of the beams, and the masonry facade on the blue deck, and many of the same needs as well. Waterproofing, they all need lighting upgrades. The lighting that's in the current decks has exceeded their life cycle. We want to upgrade those to LEDs and improve them. Right now, some of the decks, only about 50% of the lights work, so we want to definitely improve that and repair the joints, and do elevator upgrades in the red deck. As we mentioned earlier, the green deck, we're proposing to put an elevator in as part of the road project, and we are also proposing in the blue deck. If you ever park in the blue deck, that staircase that's in the front on Old Town Loop actually was built for an elevator. It just was never installed. So we're proposing to install that as part of this project. With respect to on-street parking, we showed you all the parking spaces within the mall area between Broad and Oakwood. That's going to produce about 54 parking spaces. In addition, as we talked about, north of Oakwood, Front and Second are currently one-way roads. We propose to convert them to two-way roads. And when we do that, we're going to introduce on-street parking, and that'll introduce 65 and 48 parking spots on those 2 roads. The overall project schedule, we are currently out to bid right now on the downtown area, the road, and opening up of converting the 2 roads. We are doing a delivery process on this project a little bit differently than conventional. We're doing what's called a design build. We've prepared 40% design drawings for the project, which is basically telling the design teams are going to be a combination of a contractor and a consulting firm. This is the blueprint. This is what we want. They're going to finish the design and actually build it. It's a much quicker process. It's what ODOT uses for bridge projects, and it's a delivery that we actually used, if you remember, for the removal of the dams project. And so those bids open on March 1st, and with council's approval, we hope to award the project at the end of March. The project has a completion date of next year, May 31st, and with that, this year, we still plan to have the south section, so the section between Broad and Portage Trail, open for festivals this summer. So there's plenty of work to do out there. We can leave that open for the festivals and still work around.
Okay, thank you. And I think we're getting to the end of our time, so we're going to go move through the some of the street information, some of the details of the street furniture and the streetscape elements, the pedestrian features. One of the ideas, and again, we're talking about that idea of durability, kind of a classic look, clean design on a lot of these. And so we wanted to put together a package that brought those elements into play. So we're including, as part of the package, benches, bike repair stations, bike racks. We've got some game tables. We've got trash and recycling receptacles, a range of amenities to make it easy to spend time here. As we mentioned again, the durable materials, the paving details in the roadway and the sidewalks. We've got a range of colors that will form that palette. And clay pavers, brick pavers are wonderful. And they'll bring a lot of warmth to the street, a lot of texture. We've picked a landscaping. We've looked at some different species for landscaping. The idea was to choose options that had some different seasonal color, that would provide some visual interest throughout the year, that will provide shade to people using the street. But we've also picked trees in key locations, like the ginkgo in the center, that have an open enough growing habit to make it easier to see signage and that sort of thing. So we're thinking about all of the different users along the street with this package, but we're excited about this sort of greening of the street that will occur as a result of this. And we've also looked at details that include different types of plantings at the base of some of the trees, and then tree grates in others. And the idea of creating some imagery that brings to mind the water in the area, and that's where those tree grates were coming from. And this is an image of the type of lighting that we're considering for the project. Again, a very classic feel, an understated look, and it'll provide a great lighting level for both the pedestrian zone and the roadway.
Thank you, Michelle, Bonnie, and Tony. The next person I think everybody wants to hear from is our finance director, and he's going to talk a little bit about financing, and that's Brian Hoffman.
Thanks, Fred. I've only got one slide, so I won't be up here for too long, hopefully. The project is a very exciting project, and the total investment and I want to phrase that as an investment into the community. The total investment that we are proposing is a $13 million investment. That $13 million, I want to put into some perspective. The building that we're in right now, the natatorium, was about a $27 million project, and the Portage Crossing development up the road there was about a $20 million project. So based on that, the $13 million for the potential that we're talking about today for retail coming back to the city, and the qualitative living issues in the city are very exciting. The way we would fund this would be through general obligation debt, and it is actually a very good time for that type of debt. One, the city currently has a very low debt burden that we've managed. And so we do have borrowing capacity to borrow the funds for that. Plus, at this point in time, relatively speaking, to borrow funds, it's relatively cheap to borrow funds. So it's a good time to try to lock in to make that investment a long-term investment today with the cheap money out there. Obviously, we are not going to increase any taxes. There's going to be no levies that are going to be asked for this project. It's going to be out of current revenues in the city's funds. And repayment for this is also, the timing is pretty good on that, because currently we have some debt that we're paying for every year right now that's falling off, and we won't have to pay for that debt in future years. So we're going to be using those funds to help pay the majority of new debt that we would take out for this project. Return on the investment. I mean, this is an investment in the city, so we are hoping to get a return back for that, to keep the city growing, to keep the city to keep it vibrant for everybody, and in a good place. Well, based on the Gibbs study, we obviously hope to see increased sales activity down there, increased property value, and increased jobs. And jobs have a return through salaries. So the city does have an income tax, and we would see a return on that investment going forward. So that's all I have for how we pay and what it would cost.
Thank you, Brian. All right, now we're going to turn to our retail development and historic preservation panel, and we've spent a lot of time on filling up the space. And I don't know if Bob Sullivan is here tonight. There he is. Bob, at our first meeting, asked the question. He said, okay, this all sounds good, but what makes you think that retailers want to come downtown? And so we all looked at each other and we said, well, that's a good question. So he pointed us in the right direction to really start doing our retail homework. And now so we hired the Gibbs Planning Group, and David Mangum from Gibbs Planning Group, they did our market study. And so David now is going to talk about that market study, and it's pretty substantial. And I remember Bob Gibbs saying that, he's done a ton of these market studies, and he was pleasantly surprised what our numbers were like. And I think he mentioned one place he went, and all they could absorb was vending machines. It was totally saturated. So we felt pretty good after we saw ours. So I'm going to turn it over to David, and he's going to talk about that marketing study.
Thanks, Fred. And thank you all for having me here. I do want to tell a quick story about Kalamazoo, Michigan, and Burdick Street. To put this into perspective, and I think the mayor did this well, the pedestrian mall was sort of a phenomenon that started in the late 1950s. And it wasn't just malls that caused it. It was pretty widespread suburbanization that was happening right after World War II. People could buy houses further and further away from their jobs and be able to drive to them very quickly. So a lot of cities were trying to figure out, what do we do next here? And so over 200 pedestrian malls were built. About 11% were successful. And so we've learned a lot of lessons from those pedestrian malls, and we've learned a lot of lessons from the pedestrian malls that have reverted back to a street. And the one thing that I do want to commend your elected and appointed officials on is throughout this whole process, they've been asking, how do we do this right? They don't want to have to do it again. They don't want to be a story about a failure. They want to make sure that this is going to be very successful. So I think, the investment that we just talked about it has been very well calculated, and it's something that has not been considered lightly. And so that is probably the first lesson going forward, is having the leadership to see this through and to be successful. Kalamazoo was the first pedestrian mall, and oddly enough, it was in a city about the size of Cuyahoga Falls, maybe a little bit bigger, maybe the size of Canton. And they had a successful street called Burdick Street, and they saw retail sales slipping. So they called in the expert of the time, Victor Gruen and Associates, who oddly enough had designed over here Northland Mall in Southfield, Michigan, which is close to where I'm from, which was the first regional shopping center. So they called in the mall guy to tell them what to do downtown. And so what you see is he proposed a mall downtown. And so that's how we got to the pedestrian mall. The problem was a lot of these cities, especially a city like Kalamazoo, looked at this and said, okay, how do we pay for that? And it wasn't $13 million. It was more than that, and that's 1950s money. So they built the pedestrian mall first and said, we'll get to the other parts later. Well, the pedestrian mall was successful for 2 to 3 years, so they didn't want to make that future investment in these other things. And of course, without the other things that you see here, look at all of this parking. Without all that parking and all the extra activity that went into that, these malls were destined for failure. And again, the pedestrian mall was an idea of the guy who designed the shopping mall that pulled so many people out of downtown. And so the Kalamazoo Mall went in. It was very beautiful, much like Front Street was at one time. And it was successful. It was successful for about 10 years. Retailers noticed that their sales were going up, but what they found out after 10 years was that cities didn't necessarily have the same capacity that a mall developer had, which was to reinvest constantly and to be doing the types of things from the private sector side that had considerable expenditure. So I like to consider pedestrian malls are generally had about a 30-year lifespan. They had about a 5-year honeymoon period, another 5 years where sales plateaued, 10 years where they sat around asking themselves, well, what do we do next? Things are going downhill. And then 10 more years trying to figure out how do we put a street back through here. So, it sounds like you guys are at about 40 years here by the time we're done. So that's pretty standard for the pedestrian mall. And so this is what they did. After a voter referendum, they decided to return the Kalamazoo Mall to Burdick Street. And the biggest failure of all was that they only put a one-way street through here and very limited car parking. So while the drivers could get through here, they could see the shops. They couldn't always pull over because there wasn't very much parking left. You didn't have the opportunity to turn around that you do with a two-way street. You limited yourself to that kind of traffic. And while retail has come back to Burdick Street, it hasn't been as successful as I think many people thought it would be. So there are a number of lessons to be learned. There are many examples, of course, throughout the country. We are working on 3 pedestrian malls now. And again, there were 200, there's about 10% left, and I would say half of those are successful and will stay. So you're not the first people to be considering going from a pedestrian mall back to a street. You might be one of the last that's going to actually be doing it. So again, we want to move forward very calculated and understanding the way it's been done before. So we got brought into this project to understand the potential for downtown. And so we did a market study where we set a trade area and we tried and figure out what are the dollars that can be spent here and where are they being spent. And what we found overwhelmingly is that people are leaving Cuyahoga Falls to do their shopping. So there's a lot of households here, a lot of household income that's being spent somewhere else. And we think fundamentally that people would prefer to shop in their hometown, that they would prefer to shop closer to home and not have to drive considerable distance. So our market study showed that you could support about 215,000 square feet of retail, capturing $60.4 million worth of sales. And some of the main categories would be department store type merchandise, limited service eating places, which is where you don't leave a tip, they usually don't serve alcohol, apparel stores, full service restaurants, office supplies, gifts, and general merchandise. So a way to think about this is $60.4 million. That's the amount of money that is leaving Cuyahoga Falls to go to First and Main, to go to Cleveland, to go to Summit, that could be spent here. This is just a simple bar chart. We think the sales by 2021, if the mall were to reopen today, after 5 years of maturity, that those sales could grow to almost $66 million. So the market study that we prepared went category by category and projected the amount of space and the sales that could be supported. And this is what the brokers are using to introduce retailers to Cuyahoga Falls, to tell them this is a very strong market, this is an underserved market, and there's a lot of potential here. We also looked into residential development. One of the key failings of the pedestrian mall was that they didn't realize that people needed to be living nearby as well. And when you think about a city, when you think about a vibrant downtown, it's one where you see people walking the street from 6 in the morning when they're grabbing their first cup of coffee till 2 in the morning when they're having their last beer. And without people living downtown, you're missing a huge gap of that. So we looked at what's the potential for more residential downtown and found that it was also very strong, that you could support about 40 units per year from now until 2030. And I think this is exhibited by some of the more successful developments you've seen. the property on South Front Street was developed during the recession and was very successful. You didn't see that happening in a lot of places, but you saw that happening in Cuyahoga Falls. So moving on from the market study, we came up with a general retail strategy, realizing that we had some existing assets. We met with almost all of the retailers and property owners downtown, asked them about their plans for their property, what they were interested in, and came up with a strategy that we could then hand over to the brokers. And we went basically building by building, saying what we felt was appropriate. Going forward, what we want to do is leverage this potential for expenditure to make a very vibrant place. And that happens, and this is what you see at the mall, is that you see like stores close to each other, so that if you're looking for a pair of jeans, you don't have to walk to the opposite end of the mall to try on another pair of jeans. You can walk somewhere close by. And so because of those synergies, shopping centers can be very successful. That can apply to downtowns. And so we went through this process, and again, this is something that moving forward is a part of the strategy. We also did an audit of your existing features, and you can see that you went through a couple different periods where you installed different types of furniture. And so we then prescribed some other ideas that you might try out, and you're seeing that in what the engineers had proposed. We went into different shop front ideas. We think that eventually, to freshen up some of the storefronts, you could use like a facade grant program or something to leverage your investment to get private sector investment. Parking garages is, of course, one thing we talked about. Again, when they were built, they were pretty monolithic, pretty imposing. We think there should be a little bit more light. That should be more user-friendly. What we want to have here is an area that's very competitive and attracts shoppers. So one thing that I'll just kind of say in closing is, in terms of the future of retail, I know a lot of people are thinking, well, what about the internet? The internet's killing the mall. The internet isn't killing the mall. It's killing a lot of the B and C malls, and those are kind of the lower class asset malls. The Class A malls aren't going anywhere. They're actually stronger than they've ever been, but you're seeing the B malls, like Chapel Hill, closing. And that's not all due to internet sales. Internet sales right now account for about 6 to 8% of retail. We think they might grow to about 20, 25, but that's about the ceiling. It's not going to revolutionize the entire way we buy things. It is making us more experiential, and that's what's making downtowns see kind of the revival that they're seeing. So, you might ask yourself, well, why would retail be supportable here when we're seeing a mall close? And a part of it is because Chapel Hill lost that experience. It lost what was successful about it. And you can offer that experience here. If you look at Portage Crossing or First and Main, those are very successful shopping centers, some of the best we've seen in the country. And that's because there's so much pent-up demand here. So just quickly touching on what's the future for downtown. When you ask home buyers what they're looking for, 62% are saying they want to be close to shops, restaurants, and offices. They want to be able to walk places. And a lot of people have been phrasing this as something that the young kids want, but I think it's the old folks that want it almost more. Because as you're seeing the baby boomer generation age, you don't want to necessarily have to be locked in a nursing home somewhere out in the fields. You want to be able to walk to places to get a cup of coffee, to be able to grab your newspaper and those types of things. So we see this convergence of trends between younger folks and older folks that are both yearning for some type of urban living. And you're seeing that in the way people are buying their homes, that they're looking for this thing called a walk score. And the walk score equates to how walkable your neighbor is, how many things you can walk to. And what we found is that with walk score, every time you increase by about 20 walk score points, your average residential rent goes up about $300. That's considerable. And then when you look at retail, the sales per square foot go up almost $7 per square foot. 80% higher sales in walkable areas. So places like downtown, Cuyahoga Falls, if developed correctly and if implemented, and I think that's the direction we're heading, can be very successful and contribute to that return on investment that I think is so critical. And with that, I will hand it over to Stuart Zall, who'll talk a little bit about the retail recruitment that we have.
I'm not sure how this works. Okay. Hi, my name is Stuart Zall. I'm from Denver, Colorado, with the Zall Company. My partner, Gerardo Guinness, from Florida. So we've got both ends of the country taken. I want to share with you guys a little secret, and this isn't the fake news, but retail shopping has not died, contrary to everyone's belief. Matter of fact, it's gone up. It's just changed. And so what's happened is, I want to change that. So what has happened is the Chapel Hills Mall, and I would differ with you, David. I think even the A malls are in a little bit of trouble. The experience is just, it's too difficult. I mean, it's so much easier to go on Amazon and buy commodity goods. So if you want to go buy a pair of sneakers, you don't need to go to Beechwood. You can just go on your computer, and by the time, the next day, your sneakers will be there, your dress will be there. So the winning places are cities that can create experiences. And so Cuyahoga Falls has this great backbone. It's been working, it's been here for almost 200 years. And so you don't have to, people spend millions of dollars to recreate what you guys already have, plus a river. I mean, that's amazing. So we're very excited. We've started talking to restaurants, to unique boutiques, coffee shops, breakfast places, things that are going to activate the shopping experience, and also stuff that can't be replicated on the internet. No one's figured out how to feed you, or have a beer from your computer yet. And when they do, we're going to be out of business. But I think it's going to be at least 30 years from now. So, and you might say, well, what, you guys, all these experts, how do you know it's going to work? And I mean, we know it's worked because we've made it work before. And this slide here is a project in my hometown in Denver. And you can see there's a pedestrian mall here, right across the street from a shopping mall. And this was the thought about 30 years ago. And the minute they put the pedestrian mall in, all the shops closed within 5 years. So went faster than your life cycle. No cars could get in. People didn't know this. They couldn't see the stores. And then about 5 years ago, the landlords on both sides of the street got together with the city. They spent about $35 million for only one city block, so your deal's a lot cheaper and a better deal, it sounds like. And today, if you go there, you're going to see some of the most expensive rents in Denver on this block, and it is active, it's vibrant. You've got bars, restaurants, retailers, and it does take a little bit of time. It's not going to happen just overnight, but the tsunami's here and the wave is happening. And I'm just so excited to be working with a city that has the vision, the mayor and Fred and the rest of the team have. And I think you guys are really fortunate to have that, because if you don't do anything, well, it's going to be worse than it is today and only going to continue to slide. And then just one other point, it's not going to affect Portage Crossing and the retail here. It's only going to enhance your trade area. You have what's called leakage. So as David pointed out, lots of shoppers who live here are going to other places to have that experience. Why don't you bring it to your hometown and you guys get the sales tax revenue and the jobs? And so I think by adding the retail, it's supportable. It'll only enhance what's already here, and it'll make it a great place to live and shop. Gerardo, I don't know if you want to.
Hello. Yes, I will just add that David gave us a very good snapshot of the retail that is supportable, and in terms of sales, in terms of square footage, and the uses. And that's a great footprint that you start with. But then you have to bring that plan to execution and results. You really need to get those retailers to go and occupy those spaces and negotiate the different deals and leases, etc. So Stuart and I already started talking to different retailers, and it was we were very happy with the initial results. I mean, we saw from different uses, from restaurants, from art galleries, coffee shops, boutiques that they're starting to be very intrigued about what the city is doing here, and they're showing initial interest in it. Of course, everything changes when you start putting shovels on the ground and they start seeing that this is real, it's happening, and it's exciting. And we are very, hopeful and positive about this. I think it's a tremendous job that the city has done, and we are very excited to be part of it.
Okay, thank you, Stuart. Thank you, Gerardo. Just as we move forward here, when we started this project, we were looking for people with experience working in downtowns and working in pedestrian malls. So we picked people that are consultants that had that experience, and we were impressed with both of these firms. And as we went through the process, and we were lucky that we were able to hire them. The next thing is Lauren Burge, which is we've worked a lot in historic preservation in downtown and the TRIAD building, and her husband Alan are actually the developers of the proposed renovation of the Falls Theater. And I'm going to have Lauren talk a little bit about both the advantages of historic districts and also about the theater. Here, Lauren.
Thank you. Stuart said, you can't create history. The history is just something that builds up over time, and in Cuyahoga Falls you have something that nobody else has, and that's your own history. History is a great tool, and it's a wonderful tool once the investment happens on the street for the property owners to also use the tools with historic preservation to invest in their properties as well, because that'll help kind of raise the level of everything. So one of the things that we're working on right now with the city is establishing a historic district and some individual landmark properties so that they can take advantage of the established historic tax credits. And the historic tax credits, I'll go through what they are very quickly. There is a federal program which has been in existence since the early 1970s, and there's a state program which has been in existence since 2007. Both of these can be combined together. The federal is a 20% credit for every dollar invested in a property, and the Ohio credit is a 25% credit for every dollar invested in the property. So combined, it's a 45% tax credit. These are can be combined with other credit programs for housing or for businesses, new market tax credits. And it's important to understand that these are credits. They're not deductions. They're actually off the tax bill, not off the taxable income. There are 4 basic requirements for both of these programs. It has to be a historic building, so hence why we're working to get these historic districts established. And it must meet the guidelines established by the National Park Service, the standards for rehabilitation, the 10 basic common sense rules for how to restore or repair your historic building. It must be a substantial investment, so it has to be more than the value of the building without the land. It has to be a pretty good sized project in order to use this tool. And it has to be a business to use these tax credits. It has to be a depreciable property. Can be a rental housing property, but can't be a personal residence. Go ahead to the next slide. And most of you are familiar with this project, which is one of the first historic preservation tax credit projects in Cuyahoga Falls, and this is Rick Krotchka's building. He's here down at the end. Rick used the state and federal credits. This building was listed on the National Register of Historic Places because it is one of the remaining historic buildings in Cuyahoga Falls that is part of its industrial heritage. And so as what you see on the left are historic image of the building before, and then over here on the right at the top is after, which is now Rick's advertising firm. And on the left at the bottom is before inside, and this is Rick's new office space on the right-hand side. So these buildings can be used creatively, and definitely for a creative class of people. and really create something that is unique and special to Cuyahoga Falls. Go ahead to the next. And this is definitely one of the most beloved buildings in Cuyahoga Falls. It's the Falls Theater. And my husband and I are the developers for this project. What you see are kind of plans and sections of what we're looking at here for opening this up as a brew pub. And Stuart mentioned mixed use. This is actually was built in 1924 as a mixed-use building. There are 4 apartments on the upper floor and the theater on the lower floor. That's about all I have for now.
Thank you, Lauren. Just a little bit to tell you, we talked about historic preservation. The local historic district is really a larger area that starts on Chestnut on the south and goes up to actually Wadsworth, and includes Front Street and Second Street and parts of Third. So the local district is a fairly large district that will be part of that overlay. And then the National Register district is a smaller area that really includes buildings on Portage Trail and Front Street. And we've been working on this just as long as we've been working on some of the other things downtown. And what you can see is that as we move forward, we want to have incentives for people to work on buildings. And with the tax credits and future facade program, we can make it very doable on some of these projects that need work, some of the buildings. And so it's a really good program, and it's an incentive as we work with Stuart and our broker. The next project is the hotel. And Jason Rice, which is with Adventus, is the developer of the site, and he's going to give a small update on the hotel.
Just this one. Yeah. Thanks, Fred. I've heard that there's some rumors that the hotel's not happening. So I just wanted to put everybody at ease that it is. We are very excited to be downtown. We're very excited about this project. We've been working with the mayor and the city for a couple years on this, and worked with Alan on designs. And we went through a change in operator of who we were going to have operate this hotel and partner with us. And we have a new operator. We are finalizing operating agreements right now. We have financing that is being finalized right now. And so you should see shovels in the ground this summer is what our hope is, and then to open the hotel summer of 2018. And we have some mixed use in the bottom here with some retail and restaurant space. And so I was thrilled to see all the numbers about what the city can handle, because we think it's going to be a great project. I'm trying to think if there was anything. I think that's probably about it. That's just a quick update. So.
Yeah, really what we wanted to do was just, we heard a lot of rumors that the hotel wasn't happening, and we've been working on this, and so we're working through, it's a big project, and everything is going smoothly, and like Jason said, we hope to see construction start at the same time street construction would start. Okay. The next one is downtown branding. And John Harris from A5 will talk about the brand, which is really important for downtown. And Rick Krochka is also one of our contractors, and he'll be talking. And I think we have to switch. Okay.
Yeah, we're good. We're good. Thank you, Fred. A5 Branding and Digital, Chicago-based, Cleveland-born. And we are teamed up, as has been noted, with TRIAD Communications and Rick Krochka and his team. And he's not only a great marketing guy and a great design guy, but a community member who's invested in this community. And his assistance, his partnership has been invaluable to what we're about to embark on here. And the reason that we're here and talking with you tonight is you can design it and you can build it, but if you don't craft a story, if you don't market, and if you don't invite people in, those are the things that you need to do in order to make a healthy, sustainable community and a vibrant downtown that people love and want to go to and live and work and shop and visit over and over again. So as I said, we are Chicago-based. Did I say Cleveland-born? Cleveland-born. Next slide, Patrick. We do work in Ohio, and this is in Kent. And if you've been to Kent, there's been a remarkable transformation in their downtown, $30 million of investment. And this is one of the projects that we named, the tagline, the logo, and the sales and collateral materials here. Sorry, it's a little dark on the black. But the point is that when these guys go out to market, they need a name, they need the brand, they need the story, and they need all of the things that you guys are learning about and hearing about today. And then we're going to need to push that forward through construction, through the opening, and continue on for the next several years. So we are going through a process to get community input from you. So at the end of this evening, Patrick Casey from A5, who's back there, and I will be in the back corner with Rick. And we've got surveys that we'd like you to fill out. It'll just take 2 or 3 minutes, and we'd love to chat with you. And we'll also be here tomorrow from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. to talk about what you're excited about, what you want to see, and to help us craft and tell that story. So we'll be here 9 to 11, and then we'll be over at Acme Acme Bailey Road from 12 to 2. And we'll also be at the Giant Eagle at 12 to 2. So we've got both types of shoppers covered here in the Falls. And again, we'll be, so if you don't have time to talk tonight, we'd be happy to see you guys, tomorrow, either here in the morning or at Giant Eagle or the Acme on Bailey Road. The other thing we've been doing is we've been meeting with and interviewing people for about an hour, open-ended interviews, lots of questions, lots of dialogue and conversation to get your input into what you love about Cuyahoga Falls and what you want to see going forward, your vision for the future of downtown. And sorry, back up, Patrick. Sorry, my fault. I did go like this, which is his cue to change the slide, so that's my bad. As part of that also, as the mayor mentioned, and we're grateful to Mayor Walters and Council President Mary Ellen Pike and all of the staff and all of the community leaders and business leaders who joined us on that trip, but a couple of weeks ago, went to Oak Park, Illinois, my hometown, and also to Valparaiso, Indiana, and to South Bend, Indiana. And so there were 24 folks from the Falls who joined us on that journey. And what you're going to see here is close to today. In 1970, Oak Park, like many communities and has been noted, built a mall. And through the 70s, it was okay. Through the 80s, not okay. Through the 90s, got really bad. Okay, and this is a proud community. It's a diverse community. It's a welcoming community. It's a fairly affluent community, and the mall was dead. Okay, so not only were no people there, but no businesses. Fewer businesses were there. Fewer people were living there, and it was starting to impact the character of the community and the future of the community. So in 2007, back up, the decision was made to open up the mall, and it was about a $12 million project. Did it in 2 phases. Well, 2 phases of streetscaping. The mall opened up in 2007, so 10 years ago. And then in 2011, south of the tracks was a new streetscaping project. So 2 phases and about $12 million, about the same amount of investment that you're looking at here. Today, 10 years later, there was that little thing called a recession, but 10 years later, there's $250 million plus of investment in Oak Park, okay? $12 million, $250 million in investment. You guys can do less if you want here. But it's been highly successful. And as a resident and as a professional who does this work in marketing and branding, I'm here to tell you that doing it from a personal and a professional standpoint, it works. So now what we have top left is a building that is a mixed-use building, and it has local and national retail, and Target is dropping in its new urban concept into downtown Oak Park, just announced about a month ago. To the right is an apartment building, a luxury apartment building that will have a Cooper's Hawk winery and restaurant on the ground floor, and a medical arts building on the second, and then apartments above. And then what you see with the transformation is you see people eating, people talking, people drinking, people enjoying themselves outdoors. And the festivals. You know, you can open up to traffic, and yet you can still have festivals. This sells out every year, 5,000 people. It's the #1 craft beer festival in Illinois. And if anybody wants tickets, just see me afterwards. Hey, I think we just got a crowd in the back corner for after this, right, Mayor? So we branded and helped start this event in Oak Park, and it's been very successful. And more important, there's a brewery called Wild Onion that's been coming to this festival for 9 years, and last fall announced that they're going to open a Wild Onion craft brewery and tap room and restaurant in downtown Oak Park. So festivals, activating, creating a sense of place can be an economic development engine. And you get folks, you know, like this. You could see people of all ages playing in the fountain, and even a bride and groom dancing in the street. The brand for downtown Oak Park is sophisticated, yet down to earth and approachable, and it reflects the streetscaping and the bricks. We picked that up, and so it's been very successful. And we created a system for all of the events, and some of these we helped create with downtown Oak Park, but you know, you can see that these have their own individual identity, yet they also work together. There's a local wine festival. Oak Park's version of Oktoberfest is Oaktoberfest, variation on a Halloween and pumpkin and family event called Green Halloween. And these events have become traditions that people love to come out for year after year. Let me show you, I'm going to move quickly through this one. Woodstock, Illinois, that we branded. 25,000 people northwest of Chicago, has an opera house and a square in his home. It was where the movie Groundhog Day was filmed. 25 years ago, Bill Murray, Andy McDowell, wonderful little movie. And on Thursday, if you want to go there, a wonderful team of volunteers created an event about 20 years ago, and we are marketing it and growing it, and there will be about 5,000 people on the square. And what happens after, at 7:07, when Woodstock Willie, forget Punxsutawney Phil, it's Woodstock Willie, where we come from, sees or doesn't see his shadow, after that, people go and they have breakfast, okay? They go shop in the boutiques. They go hang out in the art galleries, and then they have lunch, and they have coffee, and all the experiences that these guys talked about, and they create memories. We've created a visitor center as part of our Real Woodstock brand and marketing. And this is the brand. And the whole idea is it's real fun, it's real charming, it's real historic, there's real opportunity. And we advertise, and this is on train lines around Chicago. We do a lot of radio, which is relatively inexpensive, and there's a lot of collateral, again. And what you can see here is we're telling a story not only about Woodstock, the place, and how special it is, and how unique it is, and how wonderful it is, but we're also telling the stories of the people who live there, the people who started their businesses there, the people who have moved in, and the people who are committed to the future of Woodstock. And so what's happened in Woodstock, we're approaching year 3, but I don't know if you know about the state of Illinois, but in the state of Illinois is losing population, okay? It's kind of a mess from a governmental standpoint. Losing population. Woodstock is actually growing. It's one of the few communities in the state of Illinois that's growing. Their assessed value, homeownership, going up. Sales tax revenue, going up. And in part, it's because of the branding and the marketing effort. So the idea of putting it all together, you get a rising tide, it floats all boats. I'm going to go through this a little bit, but you're getting a glimpse into Valparaiso. and you'll see South Bend. But the idea is, as I said earlier, to craft and tell that story in a very creative way and keep telling that story to invite people in. Valparaiso, Indiana, 30,000 people, not only has this city park, but over to the right side now has a, the skating rink. The skating rink, which is used for skating in the winter, but is also used for weddings and other events in the summer. So Valparaiso is rapidly becoming a 365-day community, and it's driving more retail, it's driving more offices, it's driving more people to live there and enjoy it. South Bend used to be an innovation capital, particularly around automotive. It's now becoming more of a tech and innovation capital, and they have a river running right through them, just like you guys do. They're developing on both sides of the river. They're bringing in people to live downtown, to work downtown, new hotel, and new retail. And it's becoming highly successful in a town of 100,000 people that for 40 years has been losing population. And then you've seen Oak Park. So what does a brand mean for the Falls? We want to invite all ages in, right? All ages. It was mentioned earlier. It's not just about the millennials. It's about families with kids. It's about those who are aging in place. And people want to be in walkable, bikeable types of places where they can create experiences and memories. And that's what it is. It's about creating that experience. It's about generating those memories. And it's about leaving a positive impression so that people tell others and invite them in. And the net result is more businesses. Office was mentioned a little bit here, retail certainly, the entertainment aspect, more people living downtown. You already have the start of it on South Front Street, opening the mall up, connecting north and south. Is going to create a more dynamic and vibrant thoroughfare. You're going to get more visitors, and you're going to raise awareness and improve perception of the Falls. So it's been mentioned a few times, there's a lot of wonderful things here, and you already have many of the foundational elements here. You've got Hi-Ho, which just opened, you've got the craft beer bar, you've got Hibachi Japan, you've got my favorite, Metropolis Popcorn. Brent, are you here? Brent's there, yeah. Metropolis Popcorn. You've got a high-quality community with friendly people. Friendly people, right? Right? Yeah, friendly people. You've got 85,000 cars pass by daily. The mayor talks about this all the time. You can't underestimate the power of that. We have to give them a reason to get off of 8 and into the downtown. And you've got, and again, as an outsider, again, teamed up with Rick, the insider, the power of that national park, the power of Blossom. I can tell you that a lot of the people we work with, and we work all over the Midwest and all over the country, I say Cleveland, they say, there's a national park in Cleveland. Cuyahoga Falls National Park, it's right here. It's a huge opportunity to draw people into the community and bring them downtown. So as mentioned earlier, the next piece of this is once we listen to you guys tonight, back corner, tomorrow, at the natatorium and at the 2 grocery stores. Then we're going to listen some more. We're going to work with these guys and start building and crafting that story. And then that story has to be told over the period of construction and coming out of construction so that people, you folks, all of your friends, all of your family, all of the people you want to invite in, we have that ability to bring people in to create that vibrant place that is a special place, that is a place like no other. And you have that here already. You have the foundation, you have the elements, you have the team, and now it's time to go do it. So, with that, did I do okay on time, Fred? All right, good. With that, again, we'll be in the back, Patrick and I and Rick, afterwards, and would love to get your thoughts on the future of downtown Cuyahoga Falls. So thank you.
Thanks, John. And just a couple more things. I do want to make clear that this cannot move forward without City Council approval, and I never want to speak for them. They've approved part of it. They approved 40% of the engineering work. The final piece would have to be approved by them. So I never want to be disrespectful and act like we can make this happen without their stamp of approval. So that'll still be pending as well. What makes this a little bit different is obviously if we redo your road on 12th Street in front of your house, we don't ask for anything from you. There's no assessment. We don't say, well, if we're going to pave your road, we'd like you to put a nice addition on your house or some new siding. We don't ask that. But with this, we're asking the property owners that if we're going to make an investment, are you willing to make an investment in your private property? Because that's required. And they're on board. I will tell you, they're amazing property owners. Most of them are here tonight. I won't call them out by name, but they're all in. And we're not just going to make an investment on the public side and get nothing out of it. They're all on board, and they see the potential here, as you've witnessed tonight through the experts. And so that's what makes this a little bit different. If I pave your road, I don't ask you for anything, and we never will. With this, we're going to do a road, and we're asking for an investment on the private side. You heard about the hotel? Amazing, just amazing what that'll do to catapult the downtown. As far as all the other improvements that are going on, we know the ingredients are there. We just need to make it happen. The timing is right. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, probably not. But again, I've had people say, well, look, if you had the right shops down there, you'd have plenty of shoppers. But that's backwards. In fact, there could be a lot of shops down there right now, and most of you would not even know it because we don't park and walk. We just don't. You look to the south of the Sheraton, it's exploding with development right now. They have a road. You can see it, you can get to it, you can frequent it and patronize it. To the north, there is no road. And I'll bet you, again, some of you are down there a lot, but the majority are not. And I'll bet you that if there was a lot of new retail, we wouldn't even see it. We wouldn't know about it. So obviously it plays into what we have to do here. But I want to make the part about City Council clear that without their approval, this won't happen, and I never want to pressure them. So we did invite them on the bus trip. I think it was eye-opening to see what the potential is. So what we're going to do tonight is we will stay as long as it takes. We're going to all split up. So if there's a line, they'll be short. The branding is important because they would like to talk to all the residents and get a couple sentences out of you. What does Cuyahoga Falls mean? What does the downtown mean to you? And they incorporate that into their thought process. So they're going to be, John over here in the corner. So try and stop and talk to them. If you can't stay tonight, we have cards you can fill out. We're going to be up here. We're going to all spread out. And we're going to answer every question you have. If you can't stay, please fill out a comment card on the way out, and we will respond to each and every one of you. So again, thank you very much for coming. Stay tuned. It's an exciting time in Cuyahoga Falls. Thank you.
Like a bell that is ringing for